You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Here we go, Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, a presentation of Bet365. Hockey fans, check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. I tell you, watching the Stanley Cup Playoffs, Rosie, the ease that Carolina is getting things done with just to move on to another conference final, whereas the team I've covered and we've talked about for a long, long time here, they struggled to even get to round 2, and the Canes are like, okay, we're going to beat, Ottawa, then we're going to beat Philadelphia, and back to another conference final we go here, 1 win away.
Yes, that conference final is, something they're used to, but getting past that has proven difficult for them. But this could be a different year, man. It could be their year to run through the East and get to a Cup final for the first time. Would they win 06 after the lockout? Something like that. They look solid, man. They are absolutely cruising. They're kind of almost like an afterthought because they're just cruising through. They're not in any wars. They're not behind. There's no drastic comebacks. There's no, they're cruising, man. So yeah, good for them, man. 3 Cobb already. I forgot that they were up 2 on Philly. I thought it was just 1, and that series is just escaping me as it just trots along again for those guys, making short work so far. That 4th will be the hardest one to get, but by all accounts, they are cruising.
There's a lot of driving forces to that team, of course, spearheaded by Rod Brindamore, their head coach, and they really taking on the DNA of him. But then you have Logan Stankoven in the postseason he's having, and you talk about potentially Colorado and Carolina being on a collision course. Man, oh man, that would be fantastically entertaining, number one, but the theater from the Rantanen trade. I know he's with Dallas, but Martin Necas has been unbelievable with Colorado. I think that would be a nice little backstory. I'm sure Buffalo and Montreal have a lot to say about that here coming up in the Eastern Conference Final. But the Canes are just like a well-oiled machine, and I'm always just so curious, can they push things over the top? I'll be honest, my breakdown of the Canes every season seems to stem around the goaltending, and especially Freddie Anderson, and he has been outstanding. I know it's early on in the postseason, but you can make the case he's maybe a front runner for the Conn Smythe. I can't even get it out. You think about it, it's crazy, man.
How many years ago was he in Toronto? 10, 11, 15,
no,
2015,
maybe 5 or 6, no?
Oh, is it only that
Actually,
much?
You're right. I'll check.
Time flies. Nonetheless,
nice.
Looks like a different Freddie. And I remember during that 2012 lockout, I was playing in Norfolk and Anaheim system when he was there, and he was young before his time in Toronto, and he was either the best goalie I've ever seen or just a funnel, and quite inconsistent, quite streaky, but when he is good, and that is proving to be the case right now. But like you said, not even at the halfway point of the playoffs, if you're going all the way, he looks like he's great. Things can change, but with the battle that it looks like the Atlantic is for, potentially going 7 and having these wars and these battles, it's probably benefiting the Canes to just be, they're battling too, of course, but they're just cruising. I think that if you get to the Eastern Conference Final, whoever comes out of that Buffalo-Montreal series might be a little more dinged up, and Carolina sitting licking their chops, especially if they can get it done in a sweep here, would really be something else. So it could be their time, but lots of runway left.
I was astounded to find out last night a team hasn't swept back-to-back series and since the Mario era with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Wow.
It's been a long-ass time, and there conceivably Carolina could have 9 or 10 days off between round 2 and the conference final.
It could be too much.
Crazy. Yeah.
There's always that thing. Is rest a weapon? Yes, but at what point do you get out of your groove? Do you lose your edge? Do you come out of it? Obviously, you want more than a couple days off, especially as you get further into the playoffs. You get dinged up, and guys get some injuries and things that are hurting them. So a little time obviously helps that, but too much, and all of a sudden, you got a team that's found their stride and won a big series and is riding high, and you step right into them, and you can get caught with your pants down a little bit. So I would think that would be too much time off. But, on the other side of that, rest is a weapon is a phrase used often in sports. So it's going to be interesting, but they're flying. I don't know, man. I still, if I got to bet my farm on somebody, it's got to be Colorado, if you ask me. But the most intriguing series so far has been the two this whole playoffs have been the one that Montreal's in. I hate to say they've got some electric series going on. It's fun to watch playoff hockey in the Bell Center, as much as it hurts me to say that. It's an interesting series, that one. It's the one I look forward to the most so far.
I was enjoying watching highlights last night, and there was a reporting done about Cole Caufield and his whereabouts. And all I could think about was just being a Leafs fan for the last 10 years and just being so familiar with that narrative when it comes to marquee scorers. What a season Cole Caufield had. Smaller player, gets to the playoffs, no time and space. You're facing the very best. And that is an evolving story right now as they head for game 2 in Buffalo tonight, is how to get Cole Caufield going.
And how to score goals 5-on-5, right? You can rely on special teams and they can get hot and all the rest of it, and that's fine. But you can only rely on it so much. And when you win a Stanley Cup, you're scoring in all kinds of different ways. You're getting scoring throughout your lineup, and you're getting scoring, not just on the special teams. And you got a guy that can put up 50 this season, is riding hot all year long. You definitely need that to continue in the playoffs. So, it's a storyline until it's not. Right now it is, and he needs to get going, but it just takes one to break the levee. And I imagine he'll be licking his chops to put one behind the twine here tonight if he can get this thing going and start to feel like himself this season in the playoffs.
It's just so familiar. Like when the Leafs are in the playoffs and the axe is grinding away and they go back to Matthews and Nylander for a 17th time in the scrum and be like, where's the offense? Why can't you generate anything? That's the sense I get from like Cole Caufield and the face he makes when he's asked questions. Like, get the fuck away from me. Stop asking me. I know I'm struggling. I'm miserable right now, but it's just so intriguing to see it in a different market. Never mind a market like Montreal, where I think there's always pressure. I don't care if that window's not open. You come off that type of season in Montreal, right there for the Rocket Richard, you better score in the playoffs.
Well, it all means nothing if you don't, right? It's
true.
Again, we'll have the conversation about Auston Matthews right now and what's his future in Toronto, and does he hold all the cards, and is he holding the team hostage a little bit right now? When I think about it, I understand who he is and what he does and what he's accomplished, but everything that he has accomplished has been personal accolades in the regular season. Rocket Richard's hearts, that is nothing to sneeze at. He is a phenom talent, but from a fan, Toronto Maple Leafs perspective, it's kind of like, you're holding us hostage. Like, what? You've had 2 off seasons, to say the least. You haven't helped us in the playoffs really at all. You've won 2 series and haven't won a game 7. I'm sorry, but that's what matters when you look at the big picture and when you start talking about, starting to hold a team hostage and I'm going to drag this out till after July 1. And then are you not going to come back after you don't like what happened on July 1? Then that hamstrings the team. I just don't like the idea of that. And talking about the Cole Caufield and a guy that can't, continue to produce at a high level because it's the playoffs is a familiar story.
And on Matthews, we're going to get to him a bit later on here as we dissect the news on Chayka trying to meet or going to meet with Berube and Matthews. Is the thing that gets me is that there's a bit of hesitancy when it comes to Auston Matthews. I mean, there's been multiple reports over the last couple of days that he's unsure. That's the word that just keeps being used. And I comprehend that. I totally get that. You're a star player with the Maple Leafs. You're in the prime of your career. You're around 30. You want to win. And if that's not the direction the franchise is going, then get me the hell out of here. But I think from a PR standpoint, his side better be very, very careful with the way things are portrayed in the media, because I think there's been swaying back and forth already in the last couple of days where I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe in terms of his mindset, how he feels about this team, how much he truly loves being a Maple Leaf. I mean, that's been the wording for the last 3-4 years. He loves being a Maple Leaf, doesn't want to go anywhere else. But now all of a sudden, there's that seed of doubt. And for me, at least, it's starting to feel a lot like Quinn Hughes in Vancouver. It really, really is. And I think if you're the Maple Leafs and there is any hesitancy or he won't commit, You might have to rip that Band-Aid off. Like, I don't want to open that can of worms, but I don't like the wording around the situation right now. I don't know if you feel differently.
I hear you. We haven't heard anything of Auston, really. I mean, he signed that contract that wasn't, a max term, so that it could have put a little writing on the wall. On the other hand, could have nothing to do with Toronto. Could be, the salary cap and the direction it's going, and he could be like, I could be a $16 million player as opposed, you know what I mean, as opposed to signing long term right now. Who knows where his head's at? The one thing that has been mentioned on this show recently is that he is a tough guy to read. I feel like we don't know anything about him. We don't know where his head's at. It feels like he's good at keeping his thoughts and ambitions to himself. And, I feel like you have access to players more than you ever did before, social media and whatnot. Not that he's like super trending on posting a lot on social media, just with the size of his, his status. It's not something they do, and really put a lot of personal stuff out there. He's into like, fashion and stuff, or, a little bit about him. But as far as getting stuff from his interviews and the people that are close to him, I don't know where this guy's head's at. No clue. And even in the past, before there was as much access, seems like he got a sense of where guys were at a little bit better. But he's just kind of this guy that's very hard to read. So I don't know where the hell he's at. I have no idea. I in my perfect world, we've got this first overall pick. I would like him to play a year with Auston Matthews. I would like Auston Matthews to be part of the formula this year, see what we can do, really get a sense of what last year was and where this team is at. Do as much as you can, do as well as you can in free agency, at the draft. Say it's Gavin McKenna, put him on there. I think if Gavin McKenna does come to Toronto, it would benefit him to have Auston Matthews there. Have another year. Then Austin's got one more. He's free to extend. All of a sudden, the contract is a little bit clear. And if you don't want to have Auston Matthews here and Auston Matthews doesn't want to be here, I think next summer is a better time to do it. Or maybe it's the trade deadline. I don't know. But we don't have our first draft pick next year or the year after. I think if you're going to move on from Auston Matthews and you have the first overall pick, then it's time to pull a pin and do a big rebuild. And I think you're better suited to do it when you don't have, no first rounders the next 2 years after this. So I would like this year to ride out. And I think in 12 months' time, we'll have a better understanding of where this organization's at and what direction they need to go.
Yeah, that's bang on. Like, that's the big point. I think in a year from now, we'll have a pretty good indication if this year was an anomaly or is this team actually headed that direction where maybe a rebuild makes a lot more sense. But it's still, I think, from a Leafs perspective, interesting because it really feels like the Matthews side is putting a bit of pressure to do something to improve the roster. And it just shows you that the players hold all the cards in 2026. They really, really do. I mean, there's so many different examples. It's happening in Edmonton right now. It happened in Vancouver to an extent with Quinn Hughes. And the wording has intrigued me quite a bit, but we'll see how this situation plays out. I think time is of the essence, but I do think the Maple Leafs have time on their side. Like, even if Matthews goes to them and it doesn't become public, I don't anticipate it becoming public until this guy really, really is like, I want out now. I think you slow play it if you're the Maple Leafs. There's no rush to do anything right now.
No, but I think that if he's not going to play another game for the Maple Leafs, I would like to know before the draft.
He's under contract though, so he can't do that anyways.
Can't do what?
He's under contract for 2 more years. If he wants out, that's great. I don't have to trade you tomorrow. I can wait. Why not?
I know, but if he wants out and he's not going to play another game for the Leafs, wouldn't you want to know before the draft this year? And if he's not going to be part of your team, I think that with this heavy draft and where the picks are and the stud D-man that are in the top 5, like, can you imagine you're on the draft floor and they announce a trade of Auston Matthews to such and such for this haul, including the 4th or 5th over? Like, holy shit. You talk about fireworks in this market unexpectedly over the last week. Give it another month and a half. If something like that would happen, would be nuts. But what I wouldn't want to happen is you go through July 1st and you pick up what you can. Maybe it's underwhelming. Maybe you don't get a D-man that you think, or maybe you don't shore up some of these issues that they have. You don't really move on from, make a splash. You don't get a Radish, or I don't know if they're after Tuck anymore. You don't make a trade for, one of our goalies for some asset, and all of a sudden it's post, mid-July, August, and Auston's like, I'm out. Yeah, all of a sudden it's like, well, shit, now you feel like you just got to piecemeal something together. And I'd rather have it prepared. I'd rather have everybody on notice, and I'd rather have the ability and the time to do your due diligence to really do this thing right. And again, I would prefer, if he is going to leave, for that to be more of a next summer thing. And if that's the case, all of a sudden you open this can of worms of like, well, do we move on from Willie, and what do we, and then everyone's going to talk about Connor McDavid being, it's going to be interesting. And I just can't help but think if Auston hamstrings the team and drags this on, and then, after the draft and after, the first couple of weeks of free agency, he decides he doesn't want to be a Maple Leaf and asks for a trade, I can't say I love that timing.
I'm with you. I'm just tired of the star players in any market, never mind Toronto, where nobody has won a lick, holding the team hostage, which has been the case for the last decade. They have given in to every demand, every take, every penny. It's time to push back a bit, I think, if you're the Maple Leafs. Our Super Chat charity partner is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show, hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. So Joe Woll's headed to the Worlds. I think he's going to be the #1 too. Drew Comesso's there. Cooley as well with Calgary's going. But I think Woll's going to be the #1. Coming off a very disappointing season, 15-6-7, 3.72, 885. If you can believe it, this is the season where Woll didn't start. If you like, it's felt like it's 4 years ago. Remember when he vanished for like a month and a half?
Yeah. I mean, when I think about him, I think of, potential up and coming, and then just can never get the runway to fulfill that because he keeps getting injured, and whatever that was at the beginning of the season that we're not allowed to ask about. And I just, when I hear about him going to the Worlds, I'm like, great. I love the experience angle to that. I like getting around those premier players. I like being in competition right now with the extended off season that they have. Getting some of that going through your veins. I just worry, like, what if he gets hurt and then all of a sudden he can't do his normal routine until July?
Or you can't trade him.
You can't put that past it, right? And if he is a trade chip or a piece that could make this thing better, and if Chayka decides to make a swing on something, depending on how the draft goes, and he could be part of that, but then all of a sudden he can't because he's on the shelf because he got hurt playing freaking world championships. Don't love that. And I know right now with the seasons that we've had the last couple of years, our goaltenders, when they are healthy, they can be, a top tandem in the National Hockey League. They've shown that. It's just the consistency and the ability to stay healthy that's killing them. Every time I see them in net, I'm like, easy does it. And guys are getting hurt without even like looking like they're straining themselves. All of a sudden it's like routine plays and he's leaving the ice and he's on the shelf and no timetable to return. Getting a little antsy with that. It's difficult. And, I don't know if something did happen with one of our goaltenders. I have seen enough to believe that Hildeby can be the goaltender for the Toronto Maple Leafs for the future. Just a monster. Everyone talks very highly about him. I think he's been tested and put out to the Wolves a couple of times, and I think he's stood his ground very well. It's an interesting thing, but it's hard to do anything with goaltenders that are injured.
I won't lie, that's where my head went. Okay, great that he's going to the Worlds, but there's always that possibility he goes down, and a month later you're looking to trade a goaltender, and you can't trade Woll. And Stolarz is coming off an injury. You probably can't trade him, and so you have Dennis Hildeby. It just, I hope.
On the other hand, he played it up.
Yeah,
he could do really well at the Worlds and steal the show and be at his best, and then all of a sudden that could be a good thing for a number of different reasons. So yeah, it's a bit of a risk, but it's May right now, and if the kid's going to go play some high-end hockey and get some valuable experience, and he's a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think that's a positive.
Sounds good. We got Richard Peddie coming on today's show in about 10 minutes, the former president and CEO of MLSE, and a very unique interview at that, because how often can you interview somebody like that, given everything we've learned about Keith Pelly the last little while, right?
For sure. A guy in the exact same seat during a different era and was a big part of turning this organization into the monster machine that it is. Gaining the Air Canada Center at the time, the Toronto Raptors, being very involved with the Blue Jays, being part of Toronto FC, just turned this thing into a monster. I think the valuation of the company tripled under him, and it'll be fun now that he's retired and can look back and have some perspective to pick his brain a little bit about what it's like to be in that seat and how the decisions are made, and see if we can get a little bit better understanding about the seat that Keith Peddie is happening to be sitting in at this point in time.
14 years on the job, that tenure lasted. How if you had to hypothesize, how long is Pelly's term lasting?
I don't know if it's going to be 14. What's he got under right now? 3 or something?
I think he's like 2 or 3. Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be headed towards 14 at this point in time, but things change, man.
They do. So Richard Peddie's coming up in about 10 here at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you give us a 5-star review. Don't forget to check out theleafsnation.com. This segment is brought to you by Sunwing, with a wide assortment of all-inclusive packages to dozens of sun destinations in Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central America. Sunwing makes getaways simple so you can focus on enjoying the resort and exploring beyond it. And Sunwing has partnered with Ocean by H10 Hotels. Resorts often cater to both families and couples with spaces to play and unwind. For more information and to book, check out sunwing.ca. So John Chayka is wasting no time. It's hard to believe. He's been on the job for like 3 or 4 days, but he's already planning to meet with Craig Berube and Auston Matthews at some point over the next little while. The Berube meeting could happen as early as this weekend. But we've talked about this since the lottery situation. I think that's the next question to be answered. What happens with Craig Berube?
Yeah, I'm not surprised this is happening. What the hell is he? What do you think he's going to be doing since the day after that press conference? He's in the conference room. He's talking to people. He's getting his ducks in a row. He's gathering information. That's the kind of guy he is. That's his job. I'm not surprised whatsoever. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that Craig Berube conversation. An honest report on what happened this year. What Craig thinks went wrong, what he plans to do to change it. Are there any changes? Are you sticking to course? What are some internals that the average fan is not privy to that Craig Berube is going to be mentioning most likely in that sit down, and what kind of questions is Chayka going to be hitting Craig with? What has he heard since getting into the organization about Craig? Obviously he's going to say to the media he's a great coach and this and that, and he is, but you can't help but wonder with, I don't know. I like a mix of things. I like how Matt Sundin is in there with Chayka. I like how they have two different perspectives, two different mindsets, two different experiences and backgrounds. You kind of get to cover the gamut with that. But it does feel a little bit odd, especially after this season, to have Craig Berube, who, I was coached by him. He's not super technical. And that's why, I just, systems and all that shit, like the team played like shit and they played uninspiring, and it's just like, it wouldn't matter if they played with the energy level and the give a shit meter that they seem to have all season long. It wouldn't matter if prime Scotty Bowman was behind the bench. If you ask me, they didn't bring anything. And why was that is the big question. I can't help but think there's some underlying issue that we're not privy to that led to the disastrous season they had. Whether Chayka can get that out of Chief, whether Chief is the problem or he knows of the problem or what, it's going to be interesting. But there's no question with the Chayka and the Berube conversation, there is, again, as much as I like having differences and checking different boxes, they seem very opposite in their approach to the game of hockey.
That's for sure. And I wonder too, like, can you attach the Berube meeting to the Matthews meeting? Like, I don't think it would make a lot of sense to move off Craig Berube if you're unsure what's going to happen here with Auston Matthews. Because Craig Berube is a closer, right? And if you don't think he's the guy who can close, quote unquote, again, they've lost the plot to begin with. Making the playoffs, like, okay, great. I don't know who you're going to beat in the playoffs, and they'll have to reimagine this roster. But I think you actually need a decision for Matthews first before deciding your coach. Because if that's the case, like, just hold on to the guy. Like, you're clearly going to, like, Chayka's going to bring in somebody that he prefers down the road at some point, whether it's now, whether it's 6 months from now. I think the Matthews convo is bigger for me. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, I mean, chicken or the egg, right? Like, what is the problem? And I would love to be a fly on the wall in that Auston Matthews conversation too. I hope that, as guarded as Auston is, I hope he can let his guard down during that conversation. And, I know that he doesn't know a whole lot about, no, well, I shouldn't say that. It's just like Chayka's new, right? As much as they may have bumped into each other in Phoenix as Auston was coming up. I hope that he can be transparent and honest, and give up all he knows about this season and where the team's at, and Craig Berube's role in that. If there is some underlying factor, I hope it comes out to a decision maker like John Chayka, is what I'm trying to say. And we can get to the bottom of this and start to rectify it. And I don't know what the problem is. People think it's Craig Berube. People think it's leadership. People think it's culture. People think it's Auston. People think it's Willie. Whatever. They seemed to tip their hat at the end of the season to there is a problem and we know what it is, but we're not going to tell you. And I hope that John Chayka fully understands what that is after these two meetings, especially, and can start doing what he needs to do to rectify it.
Man, there's a lot of layers to this puppy, and we're going to connect here momentarily with Richard Peddie. But like, even the whole Sundin conversation is intriguing to me. Like, is that not a prime example? Like, you're going to meet with Auston Matthews. Isn't that something I'd probably want Matt Sundin to lead with, not John Chayka? Like, it holds more weight for me if it's Matt Sundin talking to Auston Matthews first, no?
And that's going to be a theme. That's going to be a theme for a lot of time to come. Who's doing what? And I by all accounts, it looks like they're going to tag team this operation. They're going to share the responsibilities. But here's an example right off the bat. Well, you're going to talk to your captain where all these reports are coming out, and it's a pretty important conversation. Who's doing it? Chayka might have the last say as far as what happens in the future with a contract and a player like Auston Matthews. But I would agree with you. Is Matt Sundin a better person to go and talk to and try to extract information from, as his experience is aligned with Auston Matthews much better, being the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, going through ups and downs, the pressure, the adversity, underachieving. Matt's is probably very good with that as well. So I agree with what you're saying. I'm not saying it shouldn't be Chayka, but this is going to be a theme. Who's doing what and who's better suited to do it. Right off the bat, we're having that conversation. So, I'm not saying Chayka shouldn't be the guy to do it, but Matt's would have some parallels for sure to be part of that conversation, you would think.
No doubt about it. Lots of moving parts behind the scenes at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as we bring in today's guest. It's the former president and CEO of MLSE, Richard Peddie. Richard, thank you so much for doing this. How are you?
My pleasure. I'm great.
It's a lot of moving parts as we just talked about this. To start, what's been your view on everything that's transpired the last little while here pertaining to the Maple Leafs?
Well, listen, I'm watching it from 400 kilometers away and about 14 years. So I'm not really up on this. I haven't stayed in touch with the Leafs. I reached out to Matt's when he had his recent book out, because I now own a bookstore and I'm an author. I think my lens is, 14 years of when I had that job and what I went through, and knowing how difficult hiring a general manager is. I do reflect on that type of thing.
And just again, thanks for joining us. Your experience is next to none as far as the Toronto Maple Leafs are concerned. Just in general, what is it like to sit in that CEO seat and be the boss of everything that is the Toronto Maple Leafs and MLSE?
My first dream was to run a basketball team, and I did, and built Air Canada Center. And then I got the Leafs. I said that was a bonus. And then we got a Major League Soccer team, and we brought the Marlies to town. And all of a sudden, this is a big company, and I'm the guy who wanted to run a basketball team. And now with bringing the Argos in, it's quite complex, and I enjoyed it. But the larger it got, my days of traveling with the Raptors on the road was long gone. And I had a simpler time. It was 14 years ago. Social media was not the way it is now. I mean, the word fan comes from the word fanatic. And we had the fanatics, but they did it with crank calls, they did it with letters. They might approach you personally, but now social media, holy, it's a whole new ball game. So I watch it. I understand how difficult it is to hire a general manager, and so I watch this with fascination, as again 400 kilometers away.
I think it's interesting you bring up social media because that's where I wanted to go. How do you think you would have fared in your era with social media? Because obviously that's been a bigger story, an evolving story in this market. We'll get to the Keith Pelly press conferences a bit later on, but it's just a whole different layer, a whole different dynamic when you throw that into the equation behind the job too, right?
I'm not even sure I can even comprehend it because I'm not in the storm. I got death threats, but now, I mean, you got those from a crude letter, or you got it from a crank phone call till I finally woke up to don't have a listed telephone number. Now, like you say almost anything, you get people threatening your lives and calling you whatever they want to call you. It's infinitely worse than when I was there.
And sitting in that seat, obviously there's boards and stock and valuations and owners. And is it hard to separate the difference between, like, the only thing the fans care about is a winning, say you take the Maple Leafs, for example, a winning hockey team, but there's also a business side to it that you're probably almost as more involved with it as CEO? Is it hard to manage, like, the difference and the expectations, or are they more aligned than one would think?
Actually, Teachers was my largest shareholder for a long time. Larry was my closest relationship as chairman. Winning was good business. People say, oh, the Teachers does not want to win. Of course they did, because you get into the playoffs and what each game is worth, and you go deep into the playoffs. So money was always there. I was a business guy, so my lens was really that. But I recognized the better the teams did, I would do financially. I think, and now when I look back on it, I wonder if I could have done more. I never felt the pressure from the board, but having run companies like Pillsbury and other real businesses, TSN and stuff, I'm kind of wired to make money. And so I probably would have spent a little more freely, but I can tell you it wasn't on the team side. It was other things I would have done. There was, whatever the general managers wanted, they got. I used to take one of my comments when Ken was there, Ken Dryden. I said he took an unlimited budget and he even spent over that. So there was never that don't spend that because the player was too much, or more scouts was too much. So I didn't feel the pressure on the team side.
Beyond the wins and losses, how do you personally define success when you're in that type of role?
Give me again. How do I define it?
How do you define success in that type of role?
Our vision was to win on and off the playing field. Off the playing field, financially, enterprise value, we kicked ass. On the playing field, we fell short during my thing. So, that's the great regret. So, one half of the equation. It was also an exceptional place to work. We had 800 employees. I think, over the course of my 14 years, I think now 100 of them have gone on to be vice presidents or presidents. So that's a win for me. So it's everything, and where the toughest was in sports. I used to say when I was running Pillsbury Green Giant, Campbell Soup's had a good year. Nestle's had a good year. There was no one championship. You go into sports and there's 29 losers and one winner. The ultimate meritocracy of sports. And that's a little tougher to get used to.
And when you're making decisions at that point, you mentioned, being aware of the fanfare and the backlash, and that's only got exponentially louder for a guy like Keith Pelly. How much of your decision making is like acknowledging like the fan base, for example, of a team, and whether they're really unhappy and calling for this or calling for that? Do you just block that out and just do what's best for the business, or does that come into play sometimes?
Well, you're human, so it's going to be in the back of your mind. But there's a great quote when you, and this, some fans might not like this one, but if you start listening to the fans, you'll soon be sitting with them. You have to sit back and do the best you can. Surround yourself with the best brains and the best assets, where it's training facilities or how you travel, and do the best you can. Obviously, they buy tickets. They eat hot dogs. You've got to be mindful of them. But I always like that expression. You start listening too much, you're going to be sitting beside them.
How do you toe that line as somebody who's in that position? Because a lot of stuff came out this past season about little wrinkles where you're like charging fans to wave the flag before the game. How do you toe that line with making money, but also like pleasing the fan base?
Some of those moves, and I don't know all the details.
Yeah.
They seem to be a little over the line to me. We took ticket prices up. We did. The interesting thing is after the lockout, I took ticket prices down 5%. That was worth about $4 million a year. And I looked back afterwards and said, that bought us nothing at all. So yeah, you've got to watch that. We made money. I don't think I did things that I kind of went, ugh, I actually did that? No, I don't think I went that far. Some may disagree, but I don't think so.
And staying along those lines, I mean, the Leafs have always been known as such heavy resources. I was in the organization and felt that very much. So there's nothing that you could justify needing that you couldn't get access to. It's one of the great things of being a Maple Leaf, for example. And, after this season, which was very disappointing, there's justification to say you need to make a coaching change in Craig Berube from some people. If he makes $3 or $4 million, say that is at face value the play that you need to make your hockey team better. Is there a time now that you could see where it's the money, you can't justify wasting that money, and you would keep someone like a coach who you don't feel is best for the organization at the team? Or is the money an afterthought and that the team success comes first?
It was never a thought. Once we reached the conclusion, a player, and I mean a manager or a general manager, whatever, coach had to go, they were gone. That was never an issue. I think where I'm seeing it maybe on another thing is how much are you prepared for the assets? Masai, made $15 million a year. It wasn't a contract I signed. It was post me. And I thought it was a lot at the time, but I think that was one of the reasons that maybe he was let go. I bet he's making more than $15 million now for Dallas. So I think it's the upside. How much I think the highest paid coach in the NBA is 17 million. No, general manager is 17. No, coach, pardon me, $17 million. So that I can see maybe Rogers, because they are a publicly traded company, go, oh, you want to hire a whatever for that many millions of dollars, multi-year contract. And once you fire them, you got to take it all off your books. You don't get to write it off. The accountants make you it. If you still have 15 million outstanding, your profits just drop by 15 million.
So it's so interesting. I want to get to the GM conversation too, because you have a history in that. When you're hiring a GM at a place like MLSE, how do you maintain confidence in your process internally when public perception can be completely different and often immediate? And I ask that because of sort of the backlash over the John Chayka hire here in Toronto.
So I'll talk to you about two stories. One summer I was hiring a general manager, or was it coach? I'm trying to make general manager, and I had a deal, and I was taking him from another company, and the owner changed his mind. So I committed myself, and I made a real faux pas because I was going to announce him in 2 weeks. I said, "Oh, I'll have a general manager in 2 weeks." No, the owner changes his mind. I now don't have a general manager. And now I'm really scrambling. Um, the rest of it, you look back at John Ferguson. Good guy. I, being mindful, I was going to talk to you guys. I went through my checklist of what we looked for in that guy. First of all, he was a pretty good AHL player. He was known in the locker room as a guy who worked really hard. He ended up getting multiple degrees. One was a law degree, so smart cookie. Worked in the league offices during the lockout, so he's picking up that. Gets to be, the general manager of the AHL team for St. Louis. He's an assistant general manager. His dad, the DNA was great. His dad, I'm going check, check, check on this guy. And he was supposed to work with Pat Quinn. And I figured, what a nice combination. And it didn't work. What I learned from that one: don't hire a rookie in Toronto. You can get away with that in other ones. And John did not work out. Pat and him did not work out. And that was one. I eat that one still to this day.
And, with the seat that, you've been in, and you grew this company, brought it into the MLSE era and had multiple, franchises under it. It's such a big machine now, large part thanks to you. And to look at a guy like Keith Pelly, who this season he got criticism for being too hands-on and wanted to have, potentially too much control of the day-to-day of the Maple Leafs specifically. Do you think that job is too big and there's too many moving parts for one individual to have too much of a hands-on approach of the day-to-day for one of the organizations?
Well, I never felt that I was too hands-on. People thought I was, I made a mistake. I sit in meetings and listen to who we're going to draft, who we're going to trade. So I know the whole rationale. So I go on the fan radio and I knew all the rationale. And people said, he knows everything. He must be the one who made the decision. No, I'm just observing that. So it's now, the Argos are another complexity. I recommended to the board twice, don't buy the Argos. They bought it after I left. So that's one. And now this new format they're talking about, combining television assets and facilities, maybe the Blue Jays. And I was saying to someone the other day, I still correspond to some of my ex-VPs. I said, I wouldn't want that job. It'd be no fun at all. I mean, it's not a sports job, it's a business job. And it's a complex one with all kind of moving parts. So just as I miss not traveling with the Raptors, I mean, I'm not sure where the fun would be. I bet, listen, there's men and women who run multi-billion-dollar companies bigger than whatever this one will be. And they obviously get off on that. That new job would not interest me. Not that I'm almost 80 years old. No one's considering Richard Peddie for that job, and I wouldn't be the guy for it. So,
Curious, if you were in this position today, do you think it would make sense to have a president and a GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Like, we were curious about the specific titles handed out to John Chayka and Matt Sundin, for that matter.
Yeah, well, we got into to get. I gave Berkey the president's job. I was giving out the president's job, and it was fine. I have no, they could have a president. Companies with a bunch of subsidiaries have presidents of subsidiaries, so they could do that. I can't really speak about, the fellow they hire as general manager. The fact he's been out of the business for a long time and his body of work when he was in the business is iffy, and his reputation through the league, you couldn't make him a president. And maybe because he's not, maybe he's a real smart guy. I've never met him. Maybe he'll do a heck of a job. It probably wouldn't hurt to have a president over him. But at the same time, do you need a president over the Raptors? I don't know. A president, I think they combined the Argos and TFC with a president at one time. So they went through the president thing. It'll be interesting. Really, do you have the business team between the coach and the general manager and Matt's? Do you have the brain power that you need to get the job done? Maybe they're going to give him some time. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's a decision for a year from now.
Potentially. And, with where the team sat this year and the season they had, and not a whole lot of obvious perspective of getting better quickly, to all of a sudden get the first overall pick unexpectedly as they did this week, how much of an injection of life and positivity and energy does that inject? We know what it does to the fan base, but to management and ownership as well.
Well, they'd had a pretty rough week, so that was a huge win. And if you look at the history of the 2 first overall draft choices, they turned out to be great stars. So, I understand. I follow the NBA, who are the young kids coming up. I don't follow hockey. But listen, you're number 1. Now you can screw that up. There have been duds who've been number 1. The Leafs, though, are ratting 2 for 2, so you hope they'll bat 3 for 3. And that will
Raptors.
inject, to your question, that'll inject some, draft night and bringing the person out and hoping he does really well in the first couple shifts next fall.
So the follow-up to that, naturally, the Raptors, the Italian stallion himself, Andrea Bargnani. What do you remember about sort of the decision-making process to that? And how involved is ownership in a decision because it is the number 1 overall pick? There's a lot that goes behind it, jersey sales and stuff like that, right?
The ownership had nothing to do with draft choices. Well, I would say none, 0. Bargnani, the general manager, wanted to draft him. Today the stats that are available are so much different. They're so granular, and I'm not even sure that even a lot of them are relevant. Jay, would you like to have been measured against a bunch of those, the things that they consider now, like, holy cow. Yeah. But no, I'm not saying that some of the owners, Larry would be there on draft night. He would be. But I never once remember him saying that or leading up to draft night. I'm sure he asked Glenn or whoever who you're going to draft, but he never once weighed in. But I don't think that's every owner. I mean, you see that Phoenix owner in the NBA, that guy's all over every choice of players and everything. And he's not alone. I think the owner of the New York teams is all over everything. But it wasn't the case with Maple Leaf Sports. Whether it would change now, I don't know. But, what was Edward Rogers know about the difference between it? I always said I didn't know the difference between a good hockey player and a great hockey player. Well, not me. That's not my job. That's not my skill or experience. And it's not Edward Rogers either.
Well, what I'm driving at here, just to wrap the interview, is, I personally, I think Keith Pelly's been out there in the media way too much. And I think you'd probably concur, like, when you're probably doing your job effectively, we're not seeing you as much, at least visually, as a fan base, right?
I would agree. He's been too much. I never went into a trade. I was never even in the room on a trade discussion. He's still only been in the job a year. Running the Argos is nothing like running one of the top sports franchises and multiple sports franchises. So even at the end, I realized, again, I was, the fan radio needed content every night. I was there because I knew what was going on. And, what kind of things would I do differently? I would not have, and I did not have as much media exposure as Keith has had recently. I would have, if I was doing it over, I'd have far less. You're a suit and, stay in the corner office, talk to your general managers. I always said that, I never told them who to draft, but come to me and tell me your rationale. I really wanted to judge the process, how thorough it was. And did they do it or just, oh yeah, I've always liked that guy. No, like, what did you do? And that's all I wanted to do. But today, Richard Peddie wouldn't be out there.
Good to hear, Richard. This has been so great and fun, like picking your brain. Very unique stance. And so we appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, well, listen, they're giving you lots of good stuff to talk about.
I know.
Great. Your audience should be growing because, man, you've got lots to talk about, and you got a great draft choice to pick, and the Raptors, and they're all in the news, and it'll all be interesting, and it'll be ups and downs, and you'll report on it.
Yeah, well, you've been
Thank
great
you so
too,
much,
Mr. Peddie. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
There's Richard Peddie, the former CEO and president of MLSE. Dude, that is such one of the more unique interviews we've done, because how many people have actually been in that role to like give us a mindset of what they're thinking at the top?
That was awesome, man. Like
Yeah.
he's sharp, eh? I didn't
Yeah.
know what to expect. We've had lots of different people, lots of different ages. He's as sharp as a tack. And you go back and look at his history of like Colgate and Pillsbury, and like you need to run a business and grow it. I mean, aside from the Leafs Stanley Cups and whatnot, which to some people is the only thing that matters when you're talking about that role, it's really not that. It's what he did, and it's growing the business and making money and providing resources for everyone is the trickle down effect, which the Leafs have benefited from, even though it hasn't led to championships. But man, we'll have to have him on again. He's a smart, sharp dude who seems totally upfront and honest. And I don't think you could find a guy with better experience to talk about what's going on with this organization, especially lately, and especially with Keith Peddie.
Yeah, he just offers a very unique perspective, right? Like we've talked a lot over the last little while about Keith Peddie and what he's thinking. And I was extra curious to hear somebody who's been in that role pretty much state that we're seeing too much of Keith Peddie. Because from what I recall of the Peddie administration, we barely saw this guy. Like when you're wondering what the head looks like, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, when I was there, like I think for maybe half of my time, Peddie was involved, and the Teachers Pension Fund sold it kind of while I was with the Leafs organization. And I knew who he was, of course, but yeah, he wasn't a front figurehead. He wasn't running, press conferences the way Peddie is. There was no reports of them getting involved or meddling like at all. And like he said, he obviously knows that very well. I'm a suit. I stay in my office and I do suit things. I'm not out there for the public. I'm not making comments, and I'm not getting involved in the decision making of the Maple Leafs. And rightfully so. Like by all accounts, that job is so damn big. He mentioned he couldn't at the early stages, couldn't go on the road with the Raptors anymore. There's too much going on. There's too much to be done. And I can't help but think, Keith Peddie, don't you have more things to do than sit there and meddle in on the guy you hired to run one of the team's, day-to-day decision making, even if it is a trade deadline, which, he denies, but I think it's hard to deny he's maybe been a little bit more involved than people would like. So it's just such a monstrous machine. I get if you're a micromanager, if you're a control freak, if you have an ego, if you want your fingerprints on everything, I get it would be easy to get pulled into that kind of thing. But with a machine like MLSE, I just don't think there's room or time to get as involved as Keith Peddie has been.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and support us sick kids. Let's get to some super chats. MRush89 writes in, McKenna scouts say elite skill, but perimeter guy, avoids net, front, lacks compete, a better Mitch, ? Trading down to pick D and get good picks, roster players, could be sneaky good move to gain more overall. It's amazing. The Leafs get the first overall pick, and it's actually good for the NHL because the draft conversation wasn't really out there, man. Like we all knew that McKenna has been the guy for a couple of years and Stenberg was on the periphery, but it has gone up tenfold, especially in this market. But when you start Toronto and they start to escalate things, it's a hockey buzz right now.
It's funny. I still got to pinch myself in the morning and be like, holy shit, we got first overall. I don't think it's fully sunk in. That's all I want to look at. That's all I want to talk about. That's all I want to listen to. And my feed goes right along with it accordingly. There is nothing but NHL draft news. That's the podcast I listen to. That's everything. And I like it that way. It is so enamoring to talk about what is coming up here shortly. And it's so funny, like you say, McKenna's been the overwhelming consensus number one, and now Toronto gets it, and all of a sudden there's all this buzz about it being different. And it's so wild. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the probability will be you go with the safe pick and the one that'll make the least amount of buzz. And I think that's safest for brand new management and Chayka and Sundin to not rock the boat. I think it's pretty obvious that the fans' point of view is take McKenna, don't big bring this, don't screw this up. But there are reports from viable sources who know more than I know, certainly, and know more than all of the fans, let's be honest, guys that are in the seats watching these guys over and over again, analyzing them, talking with other people whose profession it is to sit and watch prospects and players and who have a lot deeper understanding of the process, who do say, McKenna, while, just look at his highlight package, he does things that nobody else does. But the question is, we've seen this buzz. My one worry with McKenna is it going to be more of what we've seen with the Mitch Marners, the William Nylanders, and the Auston Matthews of the world, who have talent coming out of their ears, and that is indisputable. And that could lead to a lot of records and trophies and that type of thing. But where we have been lacking, and it's why we went into this tree living era, is we aren't heavy enough. We don't have enough compete. We don't have enough grit. We don't have enough oomph to get by in the playoffs. And if you watch the hockey over the last however many weeks, it is heavier, it is intense, it is nasty, and you have to have a set of balls on you to go and play it. And I'm not saying McKenna doesn't, but I think the only way you could get burnt with taking McKenna is you realize after years and years that he is a bit one-dimensional. He doesn't get in there and get himself uncomfortable. He wants to have time and space to make the highlight reel play, which he is absolutely able to do. But that's where it ends. And I think we all know you can't win Stanley Cups with that. I'm not saying don't take McKenna. I'm leaning towards taking him for sure. But it's funny how it comes to Toronto and all of a sudden this can of worms gets opened.
Hey, I'll take the debate because a week ago I fucking hated life and I hated the Maple Leafs. So the fact that we're even in this conversation base, I rather debate who to take first overall than not have a pick at all and give that shit to Boston. So fuck yeah. We'll deal with the punches accordingly. Fan bases will try to troll us. I had a kid in my class last night bring up the name Shane Wright. I'm like, never again, please. Trying to draw parallels Shane Wright to McKenna. I think my conclusion, knowing nothing about these guys specifically, they're going to get a good player at one, regardless. Stenberg's a stud. McKenna's a stud. I don't view either guy as like bust potential. And you can't have that conversation. I think there's an element of risk anytime you make a draft pick. But for example, a year ago, Matthew Schaefer, he had a handful of games to his name in the OHL last year. And look at what he did. You never know. But there's always a bit of luck attached to any draft pick you make, whether it's number 1 or number 300.
Yeah. And also with this management being new and fresh and controversial, there's so many angles to this,
scares
right?
the shit out of me. Yeah.
Like, are they willing to rock the boat and go against the grain and not pick McKenna, which the fans overwhelmingly want by all accounts from what it seems like online? Do they have the balls to do that so early in their tenure when there's already controversy and question marks around the hiring? Interesting to know. Chayka, he is kind of a outside of the box guy. He's new blood. He looks at, I imagine he's going to get his company in data and analytics heavily involved and really crunch the numbers and say who's better at what and why and what do we need and where do we fall short and all those projections. Matt Sundin is another layer to this. He lived 10 minutes away from where the team plays that Stenberg was playing all year, a Swedish player, a phenomenal player, popped off in the World Juniors. He's playing professionally already and having tons of success. McKenna stepped into college and had a stutter step to start, albeit he finished extremely strong. You look at McKenna's last year in the dub, his numbers eclipse Bedard's and McDavid's, for crying out loud. Like, there's so many angles and aspects to this. It's fitting that the Leafs are in the position to make this decision because it's complicated, and it's as complicated as you want to make it as well. I wonder where their head's at. Another place I'd love to be a fly on the wall is during the decision-making process on this particular draft pick.
In Mark Leach, we trust, that's for sure. Chris Olson writes in, Leafs trade first overall to Vancouver for their first and San Jose second-round pick and take an elite defenseman plus instead of Mitch McKenna. Wow, they're calling him Mitch McKenna already in this market. Appreciate the super chat there. John writes in, would you trade Matthews to San Jose for the number 2 overall pick, Misa, and others? It's tempting, but Matthews and McKenna is intriguing. I think the big caveat to everything, Auston Matthews has a full no movement clause. So what would happen, I think, give me a list of a couple teams that you'd be willing to go to. I understand the temptation with San Jose. It would make a lot of sense, but at this point, I'm not so sure that would be a destination for Auston Matthews.
I wonder, what does he want to do? Does he want to go to a million fashion shows and play in LA, or
Vegas.
does he want to win or does he want to win a cup? And I mean, if you want to win a cup and be part of something special in the next 10 years of your career, or what, maybe it's 6 or 7 or 8, whatever, he's 30 years old. What better place to have success than where San Jose is right now, and how they're looking with Celebrini and some of the young studs that they do have. Very interesting conversation. I don't see the Vancouver thing happening. They need as many resources and assets, as they can get, and to move on from those to move up a couple of places in the draft. I don't see it. We need D men, and I don't think that San Jose has a plethora of D to give up, do they? There's a lot of options, but none of them seem like slam dunks. And again, Auston Matthews is the linchpin in this whole thing. He has to lift his no move clause to have anything done. But it looks like the conversation is a step closer in that direction, with the reports coming out that he may not be happy being a Toronto Maple Leaf any longer.
Nick Copyrights, thank you for the super chat. If 72 can't stand up for his mom, he will do it for us. Or can stand up for his mom, he will. Well, I don't know. I don't get it. He did stand up for his mom. Yeah.
He does. I mean, I look at that as a positive, man. Like,
Me
if the
too.
question is, does this kid have grit or whatever? Like, I don't think there is anything you could have done to Mitch Marner in a restaurant to have him throw a punch at a guy. I think he's more willing to be hiding behind the waitress before he throws a punch at a guy. And Willie and Auston, there's
can't help yourself,
of that. There's 0%. Fuck it, it's true. There's 0% of that in their DNA. The fact that he did do that, because that's a question mark. Okay, you're super, super skilled and talented. Do you have some jam? Do you have some FU? And, the Conor McGregor celebration that he did, he's got swagger, he's got confidence. Hard not to when you got that much skill going on and you've been highly touted for as long as he has. My conversations and my interviews at the draft and the psychological assessments and everything they do with Gavin McKenna is trying to get an idea of how much dog this guy has in his bones.
Working behind the scenes, but trying to get Gavin McKenna on the show maybe as early as next week. So we'll see if that transpires. But poor playoff Mitch keeps catching strays on Leafs Morning Take. It just continues. Playoff
he popped
Mitch.
Off in that game 7. We gave him his due, didn't he? But followed her up with bagels and a -3. Interesting. He's a good player. I poke fun at him, but his play in the playoffs here was what it was. And I am, again, my only fear with the McKenna pick is I hope history doesn't repeat itself.
Caption this. Thank you for the super chat. Like tree living with the famous tax stealing with the Flames. Do you guys think that could be the case with Chayka league wide, knowing his reputation? I can't comment on that. I don't know enough about the story, but I think we're at a point where we have to throw the ridicule for Chayka out the window. Like, he's not going anywhere. He is the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and so be it. And it's like, what do you got? Show us something now.
And I mean, at the end of the day, to make a trade, for example, you present something that the opposing general manager can't say no to and says, I agree, let's shake hands. And whether that's a guy that they highly respect or not, the deals are the deals. I understand that is a theme or a consideration with Chayka in his past. When he picks up the phone and calls such and such general manager, how good is that rapport? How much respect is there? How willing are they to deal with it? But at the end of the day, a good general manager is going to listen to any offer that potentially makes their team better. And again, that guy, that was a while ago, right? And whether you take it as a good thing or a bad thing that he hasn't been in the league anymore, as he's mentioned a couple of times, he's married with 3 kids. He's a lot closer to 40, where before he was closer to 25 when he started this thing. So I choose not to put a lot of emphasis on that at this point in time. He's hired. He's here. Let's see what he can accomplish.
John writes in, biggest issue, Berube wouldn't hold players like 88 accountable. 88 was the main culture problem. Should see what 34 thinks of Berube first. I'm sure they'll discuss his thoughts because, again, players hold this franchise hostage. It's prevalent around sports, but it just really feels like that's probably the number one thing I'm asking. I mean, among other things with Matthews, how do you feel about the coach? Should we make a coaching change? Will that make you feel happier? I'm sure that's at the topic of the docket for Chayka, and that's
the problem.
Yeah.
Do you think that was part of the problem? And for all we know, The point is moot. The point might be moot. Like, they might not let him. I know we just talked to Richard Peddie.
Richard Peddie.
And he's, at the end of the day, you are starting at a loss if you fire a coach that you still have to pay millions of dollars. Like, it is a consideration. And for all we know, with Keith Peddie and what he's been doing so far in his tenure as CEO of the Maple Leafs and MLSE, he likes to look at the bottom line. That is his job. And for all we know, John Chayka has said, don't even consider the coaching change. It's not happening. You're not allowed to. I think that's as possible as anything. So, and that might be why Auston Matthews decides, I don't want to play for the Maple Leafs anymore. I'm not going through that season again. Who knows? There's a million angles to this. But again, how fun it would be to be a fly on the wall for some of these conversations.
A hat trick of super chats to wrap here from KPG. Best time to trade AM34 is now. He is a massive draw for American fans after the gold medal and has high value for some markets that need a star. Nice little pretty interpretation there and a different angle to take. So appreciate that. KPG writes in as well. Tell Rosie that KPG is on KPG Island right now, chilling in the sun.
Okay. I'm jealous. Good for you, man. Enjoy that. Wherever that is. KPG it up, Mr. KPG.
And lastly, boys, one of the best interviews yet. Guest and questions were top-notch. Get Tim Lewicki next. I've tried to get Tim Lewicki. I don't have a link to him. I have a link to his brother, but no response. So we do our due diligence behind the scenes, try to get some guests into the fold here. But nevertheless, Richard Peddie was a lot of fun. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. It's time now for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Tired of waiting for the end of the game to get paid, ready to move on to the next puck drop. That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, has 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast, and now with 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365, download the app and see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit connexontario.ca. So a pair of games tonight in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You got game 3 in Anaheim, Vegas and Anaheim tied at 1, and Montreal Buffalo game 2. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I cashed already on my Buffalo minus 1.5. Thank you very much. Plus 195 that was. Love that money. Plus money. I don't know. I might, it's going to be tougher. I'm going to go with the tie. Just simple, easy.
Oh.
I feel like that game can and will go to a tie tonight. That's always in the fat plus. One of these days I'll have a minus number that's more likely to hit, but I think it's fairly likely that Montreal Buffalo goes to overtime. And I gotta admit, I don't know if it's Vegas or what. I don't watch a lot of those of Vegas's games, maybe because of the late game, and I usually am watching the one beforehand. But I got nothing on them right now. Maybe you'll take that game for me.
Yeah, that one's been a tough series to read. I've watched the first 2 games. I just like Anaheim a lot. I really do. I don't know if I actually picked the Ducks to win that series. I think there's something fraudulent about that Vegas team. I don't know how much I trust their crease. I'm not alluding to Mitch Marner, man. I just think they're like old and slow, and I think the era is changing. Like, Anaheim plays fast. If they continue to get goaltending the way they got from Dostal in game 2, I think they win that series. They've got some engines on that team. Like, when you can healthy scratch Mason McTavish in a playoff game, like, fuck, you're in a pretty good position. And I just really believe in Coach Q. Like, Joel Quenneville's an excellent coach. We're seeing it again this year. So I don't know what side to take in game 3. It's on home ice. I wouldn't be stunned if Vegas bounces back and wins game 3 and it's 2-1 Vegas in the series. So I'm going to take Vegas officially. And I got Montreal to bounce back and make that series 1-1 with Buffalo.
All very possible. Yeah. So interesting that Tortorella's behind the
Yeah.
bench. He only had 8-game runway before the playoffs. It's wild, but I would really prefer if the Ducks, I like that Ducks team. Love Coach Q and would love if the Vegas Golden Knights did not get to the conference finals. So yeah, we'll be watching that one tonight too.
Lastly, anything to add on? We didn't talk about the Norris, Werenski, Dahlin, Makar. They're pissed off in Edmonton, and the Hart finalists just came out. McDavid, Kucherov, and McKinnon. Not really a shock there either.
No, the horses in the league, the best of the best, the creme de la creme. McDavid or McKinnon though?
I vote, like, I don't have a vote, but I pick Kucherov. He's my pick.
Oh, you do, eh? Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
His numbers at the end are insane. Do you think the playoffs matter? First round exit?
No, voting's done after the regular season. Playoffs don't matter.
So it's already in? Oh, I didn't recognize that. Yeah, interesting. Cool. I think Makar is the obvious option. I think he is the best defenseman in the world. The narrative coming up sooner than later will be the kid and Makar as the best defenseman in the world, I think. Yeah, Schaefer. I mean, he's a guy that could snatch that out of Makar's hand. Yeah, he's nasty as well. So, fuck. We need a D-man, dude. We need a D-man.
I know. I was telling a buddy, I'm like, man, the Leafs couldn't have won the draft lottery last year with Matthew Schaefer available. Holy shit, how different they would look.
Or like Celebrini is so fucking good. You watch some of his shifts, like he is not scared. He is just an engine. He is not a sit outside and wait for his cookies guy. He flies in there and makes shit happen. Body position. He's a God. I know. I was thinking that on the drive today, this morning. I was like, fuck, Schaefer and Celebrini. Like those are absolute home runs. I'm not complaining though. This is amazing being in the spot we're in. Love it. Every day is new and intriguing things around this draft choice.
Really good stuff. That's it for another week. Coming up Monday, we haven't talked to this man in a little while. Brian Burke's coming on Monday, so we'll get Berkey's thoughts on everything.
Berkey. Maybe we'll ask him to tell this story on how he got the Sedin twins. I remember having a drink with him at the restaurant besides Real Sports, end of the year team dinner. We were having a drink, and it's kind of a weird time of year. There's nothing to prepare for. You don't have to be all like, oh, and he's shooting the shit, and he just went into detail about that Sedin trade, getting rid of one to have the twins back-to-back picks. It's a wild story and an interesting one. It kind of reminded me of Draft Day with Kevin Costner, which is a fun one to watch too.
Great movie. Yeah.
Forgot it's the end of the week. Thanks everyone for joining. It's been a hell of a week. Am I right? Wow. Between the press conference and the draft lottery and everything that's happened since is one hell of a week.
Leafs fans are horny. No doubt about it. It has been a roller coaster of a week, so we'll congregate once again coming up on Monday. Have a good weekend, everybody at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to check out theleafsnation.com. Once again, thank you to Richard Peddie for dropping by the show. Thank you to producer Vic for Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Have a great weekend. We'll talk on Monday. Take care, everybody. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.